Life is a series of unscripted experiences that forge us into unique individuals. These are the experiences and stories of those who possess the will, beliefs, and fortitude required to overcome obstacles, pursue their passions, and achieve success. Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
Tom Segura, as everybody can see that's watching the video version of the HawkCast, joins me tonight from West Coast, LA, I assume.
Yep.
Stand-up comedian, podcast host, all-around funny dude. Tom, thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
So I was, we were sending messages back and forth about you coming on, and you said something about, well, we're trying to work out the time, and you're telling me, well, I got a little podcasting to do until a certain time, whatever, so I can come on here then. And all of a sudden, I check my phone and I see you and your wife are on. You guys were on Joe Rogan's podcast today, which is the guy that got me into podcasts. So what a weird world this is, man. How'd it go with Joe?
It went great, man. It was so fun. He got me into it too. He's like he's the godfather of podcasting. I did like one of the first 10 episodes that he ever did. I did on it in his couch. It was before he had a studio, and he just kept telling me to sit up. He was like, "Sit up," like talking to this mic, man. Because I kept like going like, "Oh, my back hurts, man." Like, and he was like, "Sit up." I kept sitting forward, and I thought he was crazy. Like when I left there, I was talking to one of the guys that works for him, and I was like, "What was that, dude? What are we doing?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's, Joe's crazy idea." And then you fast forward a few years, and I mean, his podcast is bigger than most of the press that, you can do for radio and television. It's crazy.
Yeah, you would know. And that's a perfect little question. I always wonder now with how everything's going and everybody has a podcast, and that's how I get a lot of my information. I mean, I sit there and I've said before, I fall asleep every night, put my little earbuds in and listen. I scroll through different guests. Like, who was the guest on, the WTF, Mark Maron, which he had the president on a couple
Isn't
days.
that crazy?
That's unreal. I thought it was,
yeah.
I'm like, how cool is it, though, that Obama went on a podcast?
It's so cool. And it's so cool for the whole, like, everything, for every podcaster.
That's
it's
what
cool
I mean, yeah. It'll put it more
media.
mainstream.
Yes. It's really cool.
And he went to Mark's garage, too. He didn't
to
do
his
it.
House. Yeah.
And did you see the pictures where they, like, tented off the whole driveway and snipers and helicopters?
I mean, he can't go anywhere without that. So, yeah, it was, like, shut down. I remember I lived one summer with my aunt and uncle had a place in D.C., so it's obviously not far from the White House. Mm-hmm. But they lived in Georgetown, and one of their neighbors had the president over for dinner one night. Dude, it is insane what happens to a neighborhood when the president goes there. Like, we're talking like blocks and blocks cut off. Where like, I was questioned because I was walking up with a backpack to like their house, and they were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I live here." "You don't fucking live here." Like people like,
really?
I was like, "Yeah, I do," and I didn't have ID for it because I was living at my aunt and uncle's, and I got questioned. Took my backpack and opened everything up, and I was like, "What's going?" And then they don't tell you. That's the funny thing is, they never ever ever, whenever like if the president's somewhere, and like even the like when he was at Mark's house, LAPD is also helping out. So is the sheriff's department, and so is Secret Service. But like, if you run into a cop that's like half a block away, and you go, "What's this all about?" They don't go, "Oh, the president's up there." They're just like, "I don't know." Like they're trained to like not tell you. So at the time, because it would create like more.
For sure. Just they had more attention.
They were like, "Yeah, someone's here." Like, okay, someone, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't tell me." Mm-mm.
Must be Burt Reynolds or something.
Right, yeah.
Happy Gilmore? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just kind of, they deflect it, and then you're just left wondering why you can't walk into it or walk up a street, But
yeah. Do you know how long that was in the works for Mark to try to get him on there?
I don't, man. All I know about it, we talked about it today too, is I only know what Mark said about it, which was that, it had been talked about and, it was built up for a while, and he thought it was going to happen, then didn't believe it was going to happen, and then kind of got the word that it's definitely going down.
And Obama spent like 50 minutes, almost an hour with him, which was just like.
Yeah, I'm halfway through it. It seems like it was really candid, like pretty cool conversation.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, who cares about whatever political party anybody is? I mean, anyone's going to listen to it. You got the president coming to this dude's garage, who's like cluttered garage.
Yeah,
and
it's
where
pretty.
he built this empire of podcasting up, and he's there. And I'm sure at some point they'll come out like the numbers of how much it probably costs to send the president there. Can you imagine how people are going to be killing him? What's a podcast? All these old cranky
for
people.
Sure.
What's a podcast? It costs $2.7 million for him to go sit in a garage and talk to some recovering alcoholic. You know?
I know. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm so like today. I was like, what do you think those downloads are going to be? Like, what are the downloads going to be for that? You know, because like with the big shows, you know, they get 6-figure down, sometimes high in the 6 figures. I mean, 7-figure downloads are pretty much insane. I can't imagine like what would happen with the Obama episode.
You would think it would, cool. Yeah. You would think it would bring out all those people that, I mean, you host a podcast with your wife called Your Mom's House, and
right.
It's great. It's always up there in the charts. It's a monster, and I'm sure you even see it. So, like, my brother has a podcast as well that's doing really well. It's a business. It's called the Learning Leader Show, and he's super professional and like super like detailed. Boom, boom, boom. He's in sales, and he just hustles and finds these guests that are entrepreneurs, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we talk all the time. I saw him yesterday, and we're always just amazed at that people. How ignorant people are about podcasts and what it is. People will tell my brother, they'll say, "Oh, someone told me you were doing like a radio. How do I find your podcast in my car on my FM radio dial?" It's
unbelievable, man. They're so. I mean, I think it's changing. You know, it's slowly changing. I mean, my parents only know about it because their son has one. But like, even for a while, he's like, "Where do I find that?" And my dad's on it. You know, my dad's on my show all the time. Because I record calls with him and then I play the calls, and I'll call him like the next week. I'll be like, "Hey, I recorded that call with you last week, and people are loving it." And he's like, "How do I find it?" I'm like, "Dude, it's been like 5 years. Like, are you still?" He's like, "I don't know what to do." And then he tries to buy it. You know, like goes to iTunes. He looks up my name. He's like buying an album of mine. I'm like, "What are you doing?" Still can't figure it out. It's unreal.
It really is. It's slowly changing, and but it does just amaze you. And I think it shows it shows people are kind of out of touch. Whether you're a podcast listener or not, it shows like your age or anything. I don't know exactly. I mean, not just podcasting, but then it's like hard for that person to have, if they're a businessman, and say he's like 48-year-old businessman, and he doesn't know. I'm like, I'm not saying you have to listen to him or but you got to know you need to know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I try to tell, you know, with the clubs are starting to figure it out finally after a few years of this, but like they'll, you know, when you work comedy clubs, they're always like, "Hey, so fly, like, you know, your show's on Thursday, fly in Wednesday to do press." And like you're like,
the morning radio, the Zoo.
Yeah, you're like, I don't need to do that. They're like, "Oh no, it's a big show." And you're like, "Really?" And meanwhile, like your show is selling out already. They're like, "How is your show selling out?" You're like, "Well, I did my podcast. I did Joe's podcast. I did Ari's podcast, and then, yeah." And they're like, "What?" Like that's kind of. And now, after a few years of that, they'll sometimes be like, "Hey, are you doing a bunch of podcasts to promote the show?" Yeah. And they're like, "Oh, okay." Like they're not pushing it as much. Some of them have stopped taking you to like comics to radio stations. They don't even take you anymore. They just go like.
I mean, there's got to be a point with you guys, you big headliners. I mean, how many years have you been headlining?
Well, let's see. I've been doing stand-up for about 13 and a half years, and I would say I've been straight headlining all the time for probably 6 years of those 5, 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, and your podcast is how many years old?
The podcast is started at, I think, 2010, so like 5. Yeah, okay. 5 and change.
So those things, all that, like to promote those things, I think would be like you don't go to any. Do you ever do local radio anymore?
I do. I mean, I you know, sometimes, like, here's the thing. Even though radio as a medium has started to kind of like die in some markets, there's still certain markets where like a particular show is really strong. You know, so like I know that like the DC market, that show is really strong. When I did Atlanta, Orlando, they still have like a few really big morning shows. that they're like, no, like this one is worth it. But more often than not, it's like, this is a waste of time. Most of the time it is.
Because your fans, they're coming to see you, so your fans already find you online, they listen to your podcast, and they know.
Dude, they don't do that. Like, you can't explain it to some of the clubs. Like, you're like, dude, why am I doing this? Or the worst is when you get up, like you fly in, get up, they pick you up at like 6 a.m., you walk in the station, they're like, this is AJ, he's the host. You're like, what's up, man? And then you guys sit down, he's like, I heard you're going to be at the club? And you're like, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. And then, like, talks to you for like a minute, and he's like, well, that was Tom, catch him this weekend at the club. Thanks for coming in, man. And you're like, what? That was it? Like, I flew in for that? For somebody who maybe heard of that? And then they're coming because of that? No, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. You know?
Just have the local dude, have him just say it on the air. But those DJs get, like, territorial, too, and they don't want you coming in and being funnier than them?
I mean, sometimes there's definitely some douchebags.
Yeah, well, obviously the scrubs, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some cool guys. There's some really cool guys doing it. The guys that you have a really fun time. I wish I remember the name of that show in Phoenix. It's like a really fun, like they're genuinely funny, like fun guys to hang out with. So you're doing it. You're like, oh, this is a good time. Those are the shows where you're like, hey, can I stay longer? Like, I'm having such a good time. And they're like, sometimes they're like, yeah. Or I did Denver, and they were like, hey, next time, why don't you come in and do the whole show? And I was like, absolutely, I'll do the whole show. Like, that stuff is fun. But more often than not, it's fucking terrible, man.
It's got to be rough, yeah. Not only are you doing 2 shows a night, probably Thursday. Do you go Thursday, Friday, Saturday now?
Depends on, like, this week we're doing, like, my wife and I are flying to Pittsburgh, and we're doing one show it's like a big comedy festival show with, like, Jim Norton and Michael Che and Bill Crawford. It's a big show. And so it's one show. Then I fly to Chicago and do one show Saturday, and then Detroit, one show Sunday. So that's like a one-nighter thing. But with the clubs, my favorite way to do it is like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or just Friday, Saturday. That's the best. That's the best.
You don't do Sundays anymore, do you?
I try not to as often as I can avoid it. Some of the clubs aren't even open on Sunday, which is the best, when they just don't even have it on the – like, dude, just don't have a Sunday show. It's the worst.
I can't imagine ever having a Sunday show. I grew up going to Wiley's Comedy Club in downtown Dayton. You're going there in August, actually, I saw.
I'm doing one night there. Yeah, that's the week of my cousin's getting married in Cincinnati.
Okay, so you set up a gig. Nice, man. Yeah, I don't know if – have you ever been to Wiley's?
No, man.
So I knew Wiley. He used to own it. He doesn't own it anymore. I don't know who owns it.
I know who owns it now. Yeah,
yeah.
You do? Yeah.
Well, Wiley, the namesake of the club, he was friends of one of my best friends and dad. And so he'd sneak us in. We were like 12 years old. I mean, he owned it, so he didn't have to sneak us in. But we would go in.
Yeah.
For probably 12 until I was 20-something, I'd go in there. See, like, Chappelle would come in because he lived not too far in Yellow Springs.
He still pops in.
Yeah, that's what they said. I would love to catch him on one of his coming in at 12:30 one night, when. Or
he'll pop into the Dayton Funny Bone. Really? And, like, I've had friends that said that, like, you're standing around and you hear a guy go, like, anybody got a cigarette? And, like, turn around and it's him, and someone will be like, hey, I got a cigarette. And they give him one, and he's like, all right. And then leaves. Like, that's it. He just came in to bum a cigarette. And then, or like they'll be like, it'll be a Tuesday night and there's 40 people there and the show's over and they're like, hey, if you want to hang out, Chappelle's here. And then he'll stay on stage for, 2 hours or whatever.
Now,
it's crazy.
Like if a guy like that goes on to work, say he's up there 2 hours, is he working out new stuff? Because I know, like, when you guys work out, when you talk about working out bits, like you can't be scared to bomb, because the only way you find new stuff is if some of it does bomb. But like
100%.
Should Chappelle, if he's on 2 hours, does he just not care if half of the stuff falls flat?
Definitely doesn't care. I don't think he would care. I mean, I think he's just, and he works different than most people because he can, like, he'll literally go up there and just shoot the shit. Like, and on some of those long sets, he'll be like, what do you guys want to talk about? And, like, someone will be like, I don't know, that Rachel Dolezal. And he'll be like, that bitch. And he just, whatever. He just goes off on that. But he's letting them, most people don't do that. Most people have, like, comics have, like, I'm trying this, I'm trying that. And they go and they try it. But he can do, like, stream of consciousness. He's pretty much unique in that.
I think people think that that's what comedy is. So, like, I grew up, when I was going to Wiley's when I was a kid, at least, which I saw Doug Stanhope at Wiley's when I was young. And I remembered him like it was. I've had Stanhope on here, by the way.
Oh, you have?
I haven't released. It's the one episode it's locked in my vault. I haven't got to release that yet.
Why?
Well, as long as I'm still a member of an NFL team, I don't think I can put that one out. I told
That
Doug.
particular one?
Yeah, I told Doug, like, it was so funny, man, but I don't know how to describe it. Like, if there was anyone on the planet that he didn't offend, I would be surprised. Like,
awesome.
Not even like I wasn't offended by it. I thought it was amazing, but it was just like, I actually I was with Green Bay when I had recorded it, and a couple of the guys there, the PR guys that I was friends with, knew about it. And I started telling them, I was like dying laughing. I'm like, oh man, you should have heard what he said about like every single thing he had. It was almost like he was working material, but he wasn't. He was just he was just ranting. And I started to talk to some of our guys, and they're like, nah, like I understand, man. I think it's great, but I don't think it'll go over too well with the guys in the league. Yeah.
Do they have influence with that a lot? Like, I mean, you could put that out if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, I could 100%. It's just me being not scared, but like just like, nah. And I had Brian Kaufman, the guy that wrote Rounders. I was telling him about it. He's like, yeah, don't let podcasting end your NFL career. I was like, yeah, man, who knows? I'm going in my 10th year. And it wouldn't like end it, but it would. I just don't want to make like unnecessary, I don't know, something. And it's not me. I didn't even say anything. I didn't agree. I just asked some questions and talked, and he actually had really good messages. He wasn't like killing people. He was kind of going against what people were. He was like standing up for the underdogs. And,
that's it. That sounds like him.
And and I told him, like I was saying, like, Doug, under all these crazy, funny things, man, I was like, you're a really good dude, and you care about people, and you can tell. And he's like, he's drinking and talking about doing coke and everything, which I don't care about drugs and drinking. That doesn't matter. That's not going to get anybody in trouble. It's just. I'll have to find a way to send you a link to it someday, man.
Please do. Password protected, bro. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it was really great, man. We've even talked about with Todd, my buddy who runs this the site, like maybe getting some clips out that we can to kind of like tease it and then sometime let it go. But he was so funny, man. He was talking about how it was like Flight, the movie Flight. Have you seen that with Denzel?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm waiting on my John Goodman to feel normal again. Come over, I need my Coke. Like, and he's drinking the whole time, and like these White Russians, and he had like a high school band coming in towards the end to come. And he had like a party set up. He's like, I've been up this 3 days straight, man. He's like, bingo, I just got some friends over. I don't think I'm gonna get any sleep. I just got to keep going. Like
he's not notorious for those parties that they're on.
He like lives it though. I mean, I respect the fact that he lives it. Some comics, I mean, some comics do that where they want to play that role, and they're really the farthest thing from that.
Sure, for sure. Yeah.
Before I got off on that Stanhope tangent, I remember him. That's how like great he was when I was a kid. I was like, I don't remember his name, but I remember this dude. And then when I popped up again years later, I was like, that's him. But so. I used to think, though, when I was young, just watching stand-up as a kid, and, all of us are ignorant that don't know anything about stand-up. We're like, this dude's just going up here, and he just has a beer in his hand. He's just talking. He doesn't even have what do you mean? This is just what he's doing. And then I come to find out, as I get a little bit older, I'm like, that's the furthest thing from what you guys are doing. That's the trick. Like the good ones, make it look like that, right?
Well, yeah, you should make it look like – it's funny, like, when you say that. When I had a day job and I was doing stand-up, sometimes people from work would be like, oh, I'm coming to watch you do your show. Or, it'd be like a local show, like you're doing 10, 20, 15-minute sets. And you're like, yeah, okay, cool. So they come to your show. And then like a few months later, the guy would be like, oh, I heard you have a show this week. I'm coming to it. All right, cool. And then the next day he'd be like, hey, it was a great show. But I noticed that last night I heard one of the things you said last time too. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I mean, you repeated that. I was like, yeah, how do you think that, like, you tighten it and get it, like, in shape, like, where it needs to be? You think it's, like, one time? And I came to find out, we started talking about, like, I was like, when you watch, like, HBO specials, like, Chris Rock, do you think that, like, he just walked out that night and just talked? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, no. Like, he toured with that material for, like, a year and a half. Ed did like 200 shows to get that stuff in shape. And they're like, what? Yeah, dude. You think that that's just all off the cuff? And they're like, uh-huh. No, man. It's not how it works.
That's the trick that you guys make it look like that. So what's like the process? I'm trying not to like word it like the hack question.
No.
Like how do you how you build your hour. Like, what's the starting point? So I know you guys, what it seems like is so tough now, especially with the internet. You guys record a special, and then boom, it's like you have to throw that material away and start over.
With the way things are today, it kind of is. It's kind of been dictated to us, especially by like the guys that are like kind of like a class ahead of you, like the super successful guys like a Joe and Louis. And
did Louis start that? Like the whole
I think so.
New hour almost every year or so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, pretty much he's kind of the guy. He's the guy that made that popular. And then, I mean, I'll tell you what, I shot one that's a Netflix special, and then
Completely Normal, that one?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. I shot that in at the end of 2013, and it went up in March of 2014, right? And then I'm shooting a new special in August. So I'm shooting it 21 months later. It was about that. So I'm at almost 2 years. But my thing was basically the day that it's shot, you kind of know the clock's ticking.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon it's going to be edited, and it's going to be color corrected and sound mixed, and then it's going to be uploaded. You don't know the exact time frame for that. And all you do, I do it is if you think of it as your hour like this, you start taking stuff out and dropping new stuff in, and it's like a replacement thing, right? So that next month, you're doing basically the same hour plus maybe 5 minutes, and then it's like that pace where and then 2 months later you have 10 new minutes. It's like a shift like that, and then you're just dropping and replacing, dropping. That's how I do it.
And do you go on stage with a set list?
I mean, I don't bring it out, but I like to for a show like that or big shows. Sometimes I'll write down, 1 or 2 words, a set list. But I look at it, and then I look at it again, and then I put it in my pocket. I don't actually put it on the table or anything.
Because I always, I guess that just shows how much work you guys have put into it. But when I see a guy do an hour, I'm like, man, how does he weave in and out and remember every single bit? Does that just come from getting on stage every night?
Yeah, it's repetitive. It is crazy to see, and you're like, what the fuck? That's
how do you remember that? Yeah.
I get asked that. How do you remember? I'm I've said it 100 times, So.
Do you ever? Do you ever do you ever mismatch where they're going, the order? Accidentally, I'm sure you probably do on purpose too at times, but
both.
Accidentally.
Sometimes, yeah, you can get married to an order, and then it kind of will get stale sometimes just because you're doing it the same way. So you're like, oh, I'll do this joke first and this one last, and I'll mix up the order to make it more interesting to say. And then sometimes, the crazy thing is you'll do a show and you're like, I feel like doing this old bit, or somebody will yell out do that bit, and you're like, okay, and you forget that you haven't said it in months, right? It's an older thing, mm-hmm. And then as you're going through it, you realize that you forget how it goes. It's your thing, you wrote it, but you don't remember how to say it, which is really weird, because then they're like, what the fuck happened to you?
Because they know it, and they're trying to get you back on the track, aren't they?
Yeah, they're trying to straighten you. They're like, yeah, then you say this, and you're like, yeah, I forget. Sorry, I forget how it goes.
And then people are probably so hurt, how does he not even know his own material?
This guy doesn't know his own stuff?
He's a fraud. I'm like, yeah, I used to think that. I grew up going to a ton of Dave Matthews Band shows, and every once in a while you'd hear Dave I used to get burn the disc and have stuff from all over, and he would forget the words to some of his songs,
right?
And I'm like, I know all these words. How does he forget it? And come on, man, this dude he's playing 7 shows a week.
And probably part of it is that when he does that tour, especially if he's touring a new album, that old song, even the hit, kind of you don't forget it, but you forget a beat of it, a rhythm of it, because the repetition every night is what gets it so honed, mm-hmm. And that if you're not working that thing out every night, it loses something, and then you're like, oh shit, I forgot how that goes, which is really weird. I was saying today that I've been at shows where the person that booked it or something was like, do that joke, do that one joke of yours, and you're like, oh, okay, and I start thinking about it backstage, and I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot how that joke goes, and then I'll buy the joke from iTunes real quick to
really?
And then I look like a lunatic who buys his own albums instead.
Are you listening to it then before you go on stage? Hold on.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I'm holding the phone up to my ear oh, that's how it goes. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that one line. Because you'll forget, you'll think you have it, and you're like, what's that one line? And then you listen to it again.
Oh, I love it, man. That's what, because you guys do make it look so easy. So I saw Joe Rogan do theater here 2 years ago, and he went like probably an hour and 25 of just. I'm also biased because I'm a monster fan of Joe, and it was like he didn't have any lag time or any like, oh, I'm going to mess around here in the middle for 15. Like, it was just killers the whole time.
He's a monster.
Yeah, and it was in a theater, and Red Band was one of the openers. Was the opener feature?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, however you guys make it sound, whatever titles they give them to make you guys feel better. I'm guessing when they say feature. What's feature mean? Middle?
Yeah, it sucks. Like, because when people hear feature, they think that means the main act. They're like the feature act.
I always thought that I always thought that, man.
It's more of a club term. Like in theaters, they'll just be like, here are the opening acts. But in the clubs, they go opener or MC. Feature means middle, and then your headliner.
I think sometimes there's too many guys before the headliner in a club.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, I actually really prefer the two-man shows. I like the one opener and then I like those shows.
Is that what you do? Like, do you go on tour where your wife will be your feature?
No, I mean, she headlines. Like, she just was headlining Denver this weekend. She headlines
she's a
everywhere.
Killer, man. I know. How do you say her last name again?
It's Pazsitzky.
Christina Pazsitzky.
You got it.
Right.
Yeah,
she's got to give her credit, man. She's always. I think she's been doing well for a while now, but I think she's also in the process of blowing up too, man.
She's killing it. She's killing it. And yeah, so like with us, like people are like, why don't you guys tour together? And it's like, well, you work so long and hard to headline shows that at a certain point you're like, you know, she's getting booked on all these gigs as a headliner, and so am I. So we do work together sometimes. It's just not that often. You know, just because of the nature of the business. But truth be told, we'll probably do it more in the future. We're having a kid in.
I heard. Congrats, man! Your first one.
Thanks, buddy. First one, yeah. So that'll probably change some things as far as touring too. You know.
When's she due?
December.
Yeah. Well, I haven't. My wife's due in December as well, man.
Really?
Yeah, with my third.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, buddy, you're gonna be awesome, Dad. Did you want to have kids all along?
Yeah, very excited. Very excited, man. Do you know what you're having yet?
This one we're surprised with. Got a 4-year-old girl, 2-year-old boy, and now we're just letting this one roll.
You're going to let it roll? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care, whatever. And my wife, she's like, well, let's just get surprised with this one. So I'm like, okay.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, you're having a boy, right?
We're having a boy, yeah.
Little Tommy Jr.?
I'm not going to name him that, but yeah, I'm so stoked to.
That's awesome, man.
I just want to be able to watch football with somebody, you know? She hates it.
Does she really hate, like, because you think she's a comic, like, oh, she's a guys wants to hang out. Like, she's hilariously funny, but does she not like watching football with you?
Dude, it's been like, you know, when we started dating, it was like, you know, I'm even a bigger college fan than an NFL fan. Mm-hmm. So we weren't working the road when we started dating. We were living in LA and just doing local stuff, and I'd be like, it's Saturday, we're gonna watch some football today. And she was like, what? Like it was like Chinese to her. Like she was like, what? And I would try to break it down, like, as you know, make it like, see, these guys have the ball and they want to score. And she was like, look, man, I'm gonna go out. I'll see you later, okay? And then she'd come back like an hour later. She'd be like, so what do you want to do now? I'm like, that's the fucking second quarter. What are you talking like? And then she was like, she would see me watching, you know, all the post-game shows. She's like, are you watching a show where the guys talk about the shit you just watched? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't realize how dumb that sounded, but I go, that's exactly, yes, we're talking about the shit I just watched. She was like, so why are you watching? You just watched it. I'm like, because I want to hear what they have to say about it. And then I'm going to watch another game. She didn't understand that. Man. Like, you just watched the game. Why are you watching another game? I'm like, because it's a fucking different game. So, and then later, there'll be a replay of that first game I was watching. I'll probably watch that too.
In case you missed something. Yeah, you just went through the weekend for 85% of the males in America right now. Probably.
It really did, yeah. It's got to be so crazy. Isn't it crazy, dude, that, like, to realize, first of all, you've defied all the odds by playing this long in the league. I mean, that's, you know, everyone knows, like, that whole not for long thing, and they always throw that stat up that, like, average careers are like 3 years and shit. I mean, that is insane that you're in your 10th year. That blows my mind.
Oh, trust me, I don't take it for granted. I'm super lucky. I'm 31 now, which sounds crazy old to me. I don't feel old, but it's gone by very quickly. And to be I was lucky enough to go to Green Bay, win a Super Bowl, like all kind of things. It's
so
weird.
Cool, man.
It's really weird to think. And I'm from Ohio, played at Ohio State. Like, wow, how did this all work out?
You were on the 2002 team, right?
Yeah, I was a freshman that year for the national championship.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Miami. Well, you probably wanted us to win if you're a Florida State fan.
Yeah, well,
you
I mean,
didn't like Miami, or did you want Miami to win?
No, that actually game. Here's why I'll never forget that game. It's not for all the implications and I'm sure you saw like the what's it called, the You documentary and stuff.
I had Billy Corbin on here.
Wow. Oh yeah, that dude's great.
He's the best.
Yeah, and those were great docs. Is that that's the day I arrived in LA. So I pulled into LA, and that'll always be like my memory is that I wanted to get in time for the national championship game, and I watched that game, and that was an amazing game, dude.
Oh, it was crazy. People have very strong feelings about the end, like pass interference or not.
For sure. And then all those guys, I follow because I just follow a bunch of people, college football fans, different teams.
Yeah.
Like I remember when that documentary came out, those like 11 Warriors guys, like the Ohio State guys, they were tweeting out I forget what was the play that somebody wasn't it like a Miami defender like tackled a receiver or something? Like there was a missed flag or a missed call.
Man, I don't know why I'm blanking on. There's so many things in that game.
I can't remember the play, but then they tweeted out all of those things. They're like, "What about that? What about this flag?" So yeah, it's always back and forth. But you must have thought you guys lost for a second, right? Didn't you think it was over or no?
Yeah, it was weird because they all like ran on the field and were like yelling at us, and I was so young. I mean, I was 18, and to think back now,
crazy.
It is. And I was like, I was there in the moment. Now when I look back, I'm like, oh god, I was like a little kid, But I thought the game was over for a second. But then it was weird. Like I kept like watching down because our offense was on the field. I kept watching. I could see like the ref threw the flag a little late.
A little late. Yeah.
But like I could tell he was like holding on, and you could just tell. And I'm like, it was like you were willing the guy to pull that flag. Like, you got your hands on it, man. Just do it. Just let it roll. And so it was one of those things where you just you're holding out hope. Like, there's no way he's letting this happen. But I've also been on the other side of that where you think, like, this isn't over. No, And the whole team's on the field dancing around you, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess it is over.
Shit, it's over.
Yeah, it's brutal. It can happen both ways for you. What'd you go to LA for originally? Did you want to just strictly stand up, or did you want stand up to get you into acting or something?
I was totally like, well, I knew I wanted to do to perform in some way. So, and I knew it was like comedy, but I just thought that it made more sense. Like I didn't go like I'm going to be a stand-up. I just went like, I heard about like the Groundlings was like a improv school, and they would always profile that like SNL alums and people on the show had been either in Second City or the Groundlings. So I moved to LA. And then I was like, oh, I'll take a Groundlings class, and then I'll do SNL, like right after that. Like that was my cool plan. So I signed up for that, and it was great. I mean, doing the Groundlings was really fun. But I met stand-ups in the class, like guys that were already stand-ups, and they kept encouraging me. Like they kept saying, like, you should do stand-up. You should do stand-up. Like, you would really like stand-up. I think they were just like, yeah, you're kind of making everything about yourself, so you should do stand-up. so I was like, all right. And then one of them I remember he took me to a show. They call it Bringer shows. Bringer shows is like.
Yeah, you got to bring friends. Like, you have 5 minutes, but you got to bring 5 friends.
Exactly. And it's just for some scumbag to pocket like $20 a head on you, and so you have an audience. And I went to do this, to this Bringer show, and the lady was like, oh, like I have a show in like 2 weeks. Do you want to do it? And I had never done stand-up, and he introduced me as he was like, he's a comic. And I was like, instead of being like, I've never done it, I was like, yeah, cool, I'll do that in 2 weeks. And then like an asshole, I invited a group of people to watch me do stand-up. But instead of being like, hey, you're going to watch me do stand-up for the first time, I was like, yeah, I do stand-up.
Did you know these people? Or were they
Yeah,
friends?
some of them. I mean, some of them knew I had never done it, and some of them were like, "Oh, cool! I didn't know you stand up." I was like, "Yeah, I do stand up all the time." And then I'm sitting up there just like fucking having a panic attack. Yeah. So hold on one second. Wait, this one? Oh yeah. Sorry. Moving stuff.
That's fine.
There we go. Yeah. So I totally I was fully fucking panicked at that. But like, I don't think they really knew. You know, I was like, I remember I pounded 2 beers before that. Like they called me up and I was like, such anxiety that I downed a beer in half a second.
Did that help?
At the time, yeah. And the other thing that helped was that the MC called me up on accident before I was supposed to go up. So I think it was really weird. Like they have the list when you do a show. They're like, all right, you're second or you're fifth or you're eighth. And I looked and I was like 7th. So I was like, oh, I got a long time to sit in this anxiety. And then the MC's wrapping up her set, and I hear her be like, Tom Segura, Tom. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I run out there. I'm like, I thought I was 7th. And she looks at the list. She goes, oh, yeah, sorry. But actually, I think that helped me.
Oh, yeah, because you probably didn't have the time to sit there and just build. I can't imagine.
And freak out, yeah.
And if the people were funny in front of you, I would think it would get even tougher. You're like, oh, my God, these guys are real.
Yeah.
Did you have anything written for that first time?
Oh, 100%. And I was like, I was so sure of myself. I was like, this is good. This is good. This will be great. Yeah.
That's awesome, though, man. That's great because I would think it would be the complete opposite way.
I thought
garbage.
I thought I was doing really good. And then, I mean, here's the thing. In looking back on it, it was good enough where I didn't quit or get scared of it. It was just I got enough laughs to be like, oh, I can do this. It could have been dog shit, in which case I don't know what had happened, but I got enough, I had enough just moments where I was where you're like, you know what, I can do better. I'm going to do this again. And then it's like a disease, And
then you started going up. That's something that people don't know that I've found out from listening to comics on different podcasts that even the biggest comics go up, you got to be going up, 5-6 nights a week, don't you? If you want to continue to hone your craft? I mean, yeah, it's a really weird pace with which, here's what happened. Everyone's different. I wasn't getting up quite that much. I mean, it starts off really slow, and you think you're doing it a lot. You're like, dude, I did a spot last month, got another one this month, and you have no idea unless you're really in with how it works. And then you meet somebody who's like, last month? What are you talking about? I did 7 spots this week or whatever, tonight. And you're like, oh, shit. So I started to do it more and more locally, and then I got a weekend of work at a club, at an improv in Brea, which is 40 miles east of LA. Mm-hmm. And when they started working me, I just put in for work all the time, and I started doing those booked big shows, but emceeing big shows, and they gave me a ton of work. So as I started doing that, I kept doing my local spots, but I started to do MC work for a couple of years. And then when I got bumped up to feature, pretty soon after I quit my job. And what was that job?
At the time I was working in post-production. I was a post coordinator, which is basically just, that this editor is working on this schedule and, what is your PA doing today? It's you're kind of almost like a secretary in a way, just organizing stuff. And I'm terrible at that. I was terrible at it. And I quit that job, which was a decent job, to feature. Feature, by the way, across the country basically is $100 a show. Yeah. And I accepted feature gigs where they don't pay for airfare. So you have to pay for airfare.
So you're losing a ton of money then.
Oh my God. I mean, you're just racking up debt. But I was I saw it as kind of my medical school or something, It was because there's no other way to do it. I didn't see another way to do it. There was people who didn't take that route. They stayed in LA, and some of them have become successful, but I didn't process staying here and getting better at it and doing well. I just didn't understand how to do that. So for me, I was I would rather buy a $500 plane ticket, make $600, and just work like that to get better at stand-up than stay here and not work like that. I just didn't understand another way to do it.
Is it different now with like the internet and how guys are doing it? Like I forget the dude's name, man. He's a young kid. He plays the piano and he has like a weird...
Bo Burnham?
Yeah, Bo Burnham. Yeah, he's like purely YouTube internet, isn't he? How he kind of came up.
I think so. Yeah, that dude's he's like a legit genius though.
He seems like I watched his show and I was actually I think this he's some funny stuff. It's weird. It's different, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember when he like started to blow up and like comics, are all assholes.
Oh yeah.
So they're like, this 16-year-old kid has like a half-hour special. Everyone was like, fuck that kid. Like he sucks. And like without even, and then you would see him do a spot, and you're like, that kid's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. He's just one. There's not that many amazing talents, like where you're like, holy shit, that guy's crazy. Like just where you can't put your, you can't even wrap your head around how it's just different level of skill, and he's one of those guys that, I think his IQ is probably off the charts. He's musically gifted. It's a different like level. It's not just up there like, so I took your shit today. It's like it's totally different.
Yeah, you wonder how they come up with that stuff. That's kind of like, I don't know. I can't think of a guy, but I was just thinking for some reason I was thinking of live reads that guys do on their podcast. My brother was telling me sometimes he'll listen to Joe's podcast just to hear him do the live reads of the ads because he's so awesome and funny. It made me think of Bill Burr laughing at on his Monday morning podcast or whatever.
His Sherry's Berries one?
Oh my God! What are you like? And he just makes fun of himself because he can't ever read the copy.
Sherry's Berries. Yeah, that one.
And he just goes back and forth and just kills the company and whatever. What are we doing here? Come on! I just love that dude, man. He kills me. But it would make sense that people would be way more apt to listen to that than some stupid stock ad. That comes from some other guy.
Some of them are like are very particular, and they have different. Like we've done a ton of ads by now, all different companies. Mm-hmm. Some of them just give you the green light to go for it. Dude, have you ever seen Joey Diaz do ads?
A little bit, not a ton. But
okay, not the last time I was on recently, but the time before. I'll send you the link with the time code.
Oh, please.
He's like, fucking. These fucking motherfuckers at Squarespace want you to fucking do, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, stop being a fucking cunt and sitting around your house. You're sitting there jacking off in your mother's sweatpants. Go get a fucking website. I'm like, what kind of ad is that? And I'm like, I'm dying on the thing. And I couldn't get over. I was like, they let you do that? And he goes, what? Like he doesn't even think that like maybe the advertiser doesn't want you to talk like that during their product. He's just ridiculous.
I'd pay to have him. I wish I had a product I could have him read because I can picture him as you're reading because he does that, man. It's amazing, and it's something that I think is cool that everything's moving that way. Like, you're still making money and you're selling stuff, but you're
podcasts are
honest. You're honest with it, man. Like, and the people that will actually. They're diehard listeners and they're engaged, and that's what all those advertisers want. People that were like, oh, okay, well, yeah, he wants.
I've told them. Sometimes I talk to the actual advertiser, and they'll be like, some of them will have like, copy, read this, this, and this, and you're like, all right. And I go, can we like kind of personalize it a little? And some of them, I'm like, dude, I'll tell them like, you're gonna get better results, because it's gonna be like genuine versus saying exact and then by the way you gave like 20 other shows the exact copy, so a podcast listener knows that like this is just your standard. Some of them just want it like that, and you go, all right, that's what you want, I guess.
Those people shouldn't be advertising on podcasts. Those are the people that are doing normal commercial stuff.
I agree.
If they want that, I'm way more likely to not hit that 15-second forward deal multiple times if I hear you go into a read when I know like you're gonna freestyle a little bit and you never know where it's gonna go. And that's what makes it awesome, man. That's why I think it's cool too, like the millennial, whatever you want to call the kids, millennials, whatever. Yeah. People younger than me that's all they know is this world. So
yeah. Like, now let's talk more football.
Yeah.
Okay. So
what do you have? I cut you off earlier, but you had a question a while back.
I have a bunch of questions, but I'll start with this.
Okay.
Okay. So when you're coming out of high school, Are you committed immediately? Do you like, I definitely want to go to Ohio State, or were you open to like being recruited a bunch of places?
I wasn't like a crazy, highly recruited dude, but I knew if Ohio State offered me a scholarship, I was going.
You were done. Okay.
No question. And I grew up I grew up like an hour and a half from where Ohio State is, but
Right.
I wasn't like the crazy, like, would kill my brother to go to a game. I loved him, but I was weirdly a Florida State fan too, man. It was just
What?
weird. Yeah, like I liked Ohio State was my team. I loved them, but it all is because my dad, Rex Caswell, he might have listened to this. My dad's buddy used to buy us Florida State starter jackets. You know, the old school starter jackets. And so I was like, from a young age, I'm like, oh, what are we gonna get this year? And hats started. I'm like, I like Florida State. So like I had my hamsters' names were like Warwick, Amp Lee, Dion, all kind of stuff. So yeah, it's
people ask me because I ended up living in Florida, and they'll assume that that's when I was a fan, and I'm like, nah, it was before then. And they're like, well, what was it? And I go, well, you're a kid, you get drawn into something for like sometimes it's a silly thing that first catches your attention.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I saw them play in all white uniforms with like the gold helmets. I was like, that shit looks fresh. Who are those? And then they like wrecked somebody. It was like 55-3. I was like, that's my squad.
So that's still
yeah. And I just stuck with it. And then when you live in a state, when you live down there, you can't be like, I don't care, whichever team. No, it's like you're a Miami fan, you're a Florida State fan, or you're a Gator fan. So you always everybody. And then I realized too that part of what makes you hate other teams is that some kid you hate likes that team.
100%.
So it's like 100%. Yeah, people are like, so you hate the Gators? Absolutely. Why? Because you hate that program? Not really. It's because this kid Lance liked them, and like I hated him. So I just hate. It's like hate by proxy. It's like it has nothing to do with the actual institution or the program. You're just like, no. I just hated people that liked them. So that's why I hate them.
It makes sense. It is funny when you're a little kid. Are you going to try to bring up your son to be a Florida State guy?
Yeah, I'm not one of those like lunatic. Like I really do love the game, and I really do. I have a special place for like college ball. I'm sure I'll probably throw like a little onesie on him or something, but I'm not going to be like, this is your team.
Yeah.
All right. Like I'm going to name his middle name is going to be Bowden or something. It's just going to be like, I'll let him go where he wants to go. But yeah, I think it'll be fun to talk. Have football stuff with him. Now, here's my question, though. I have another question. So when you get there, right, when you get to Columbus, do you have, is it like, you got a scholarship, so you're good enough to go, but do you shit your pants, like, going into camp when you're like, am I good enough to play here? Did everybody play with those doubts, or you're good enough?
I don't know. I mean, I was lucky that I was so young and stupid and ignorant that I didn't go in. I never went in thinking, like, oh, I'm going to tear this place up. These guys are going to know my name after day one. Like, I never did that, but I never was really – I wasn't, like, scared or anything, but it was definitely you have, like, anxiety going in early on, especially when you put pads on for camp. You're like – because I was just barely 18 going in, and the guys I'm watching on the field they're all celebrities to me. These old guys, they're grown men,
But they look like it. 22 to 18 can be a real big – difference, right?
Yeah, a huge difference. And these guys they've lived the whole life, especially some of these like fifth-year seniors that have been there and they've been around, like these grizzled like vets. And those dudes, when I got to Ohio State, they were some of the last like true throwback guys that they lived hard and they played hard. Like they were working when they're at the field, and when they weren't at the field, they were getting after it. Yeah, and they were able to balance it perfectly. And it's hard to find guys like that can kind of do it both. And those dudes, I have tons of respect for them. But yeah, they were men. I wasn't sure I'd say going in.
Really? So now when you go to the NFL though, now you have like that you go on awards and you're getting drafted high, so you're like, this is it. But when you arrive at an NFL team, is it the same kind of anxiety? Like, what the fuck? Or no, more secure?
I would say like a more, but you still don't know. Like you're still thinking like, okay, well these guys.
And then a grown man might be like 30 and you're 22, right? And you're like, whoa.
My rookie year, Brett Favre, I played 2 years with Brett. So
that's crazy.
I walked in and saw Brett in our first, I was drafted, like 3 days later I was there for like a mandatory mini camp. And I see him, he was like, I don't know what he was, 36, 30 something at the time, 37 maybe. So he Yeah, you talk about some grown men, and they had some older, some 30, 32-year-old dudes. So, yeah, there's a little bit of like, what's this going to be like? And then you put the pads on for the first day, and it's like anything. It's like probably, you go on stage. If you can get a laugh early. I remember I got our first padded practice. I got a nice shot on a dude, like a fullback. He was a vet, too. And I came downhill and just blasted him right in the side of the head. And I'm like, okay, cool, I feel good.
That's and it dissipates, right?
It definitely helped, yeah. It made yourself feel better, but it's almost like a game too. Every game you go into, there's always never like I'm not like a nervous guy. Some guys are crazy nervous. I would say I'm like anxious going into games, but whenever you can get out there, and if you can just do anything early, like get a big shot early on somebody, or even just make like a decent play or a couple tackles early and just get into the groove, then you feel that much better. Yeah, you're like, okay, cool, I'm good.
When I was one of the nervous guys, and I would vomit almost before every game. Sometimes on the sideline, and or sometimes you're stretching in the end zone. I'd fucking turn and puke.
Would you do it through your face mask too? That's a big. If you puke through your face mask, then that's a bad deal.
Okay. I would take this. I do remember one time. This is because my memories are vivid because they ended a long time ago. So my Super Bowl is like a high school game, but I remember a dude lining up against a dude who I put my arm on, my fingers in the dirt, and he's lined up across, and he just puked as we're all over me, all over my arm, and I was like, oh man, come on, dude.
Was this in a game?
In a game, yeah. So you're lined up against each other, fingers in the ground. He's threw his face mask all over my arm, and I was like, dude, come on, man. Nothing. He didn't even move. No, nothing, man. Nothing.
If that dude continues, if he just puked, I've seen crazy dudes that usually the big fat offensive linemen, they'll puke in the middle of a play and just keep running, and like puking as they're going, and just and they'll still come down and try to gore you and kill you. I'm like,
yeah,
what is happening? Who is this guy?
This guy was like 310, like a junior in high school, just massive, puked all over the place, didn't even miss a beat. So gross.
Did you play all 4 years in high school?
Yeah.
Did you like it? I mean, did you want to go forward into college?
I definitely did, and here's was my realization later was like, you know what, the desire wasn't strong enough because I when I look back at like my work ethic, it just wasn't there. Like I'm a comedian for a reason. I like being lazy, and sometimes you go like, oh, I want because I could I was gonna go to like a couple of D3 schools or D2, and you're like, that could have been cool. But here's when I realized I made the right decision. I ended up going to a D2 school and didn't play football, and my best friends there did, and I was like, this sucks for you. Like they would talk, they would have their whatever they like conditioning thing. I was like, fuck that, man. Like I'm doing bong rips, and I'm like I realized that the fantasy of it was that it was a fantasy that I enjoy. I still love watching and everything, but I was like, I fantasized like, oh, I wish I was playing, but then I would saw like what they had to do, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that shit, man. Like I'll just stay watching it.
It's true, man. People don't see that. It's just like comedy. It's like any job in the world.
Yeah,
everyone only sees the good stuff. Like coaches will say in the NFL, like we get paid for what you do Monday through Saturday, and Sunday is just for fun.
I get that. I totally get that. You know what I always wondered? How do you when you arrive at a city, like you go to Green Bay, how do you know who tells you like what area sucks to live in?
Other players. That's
right
the first
away?
thing you do.
Like,
yeah, I'm freshly new into Cincinnati a couple months, and that's the first thing I do is talk to guys. Like, hey, where do you guys live? And they're like, oh, no, stay away from that building. You don't want to be there.
They're like, over the Rhine, dude. Live over there.
Yeah. They cleaned that up, though, man. It's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming
around. I've heard they cleaned it up.
But
Indian Hills, bro. That's where you got to be.
Yeah, I'm actually, we're just renting a spot over in Newport across the river.
What? That's where the Newport Funny Bone is.
Funny Bone. I drive by it all the time.
I used to play that Nightmare of a Club. I've been there before.
Is it? I went on, so I'm like, oh, sweet, man. This is cool. It's pretty close to me.
It's all right. Go Bananas in Montgomery. That's the fucking club. Okay. That's where Stanhope plays.
Do you know Josh Sneed by any chance?
Yeah, sure.
I know Josh. Yeah. Josh plays there. That's like his home club, too.
Absolutely, yeah. Cincinnati guy.
Where is it in Cincinnati?
It's in Montgomery. Okay. I remember the cross streets, but it's that's one of the throwback clubs where it's like, I think pack, it's just over 200, like maybe 215.
Yeah.
And it's like, low ceilings, like definitely like dirty. It's like it's a fun. That's a real comedy club. It's really great.
I'll have to
Really
check it
great.
out, man. Do
Yeah.
you ever do corporate gigs?
A few I've done. It doesn't work out that well for me. I don't know. Like at first, like they're enticing because you get paid. Depending on
Yeah.
your level, they'll. I mean, some of the money I've heard people get paid for corporate gigs. I'm like, what, dude? Like, I'll do whatever they say for that money. But like, because it's just crazy, to go for it. But I've had like, one time I did a gig. It's another Covington. Is that right over the?
In Kentucky, yeah, it's right there.
Yeah. Okay. I did a private gig for the Home Builders of Northern Kentucky Association. And I ate my dick so hard. It was at a country club in Covington. And so I pull in and like I see that they're all, in a country club, which is not like the ideal spot for stand up. You're like, all right, comedy clubs are kind of like.
Were you like catching them after their round when they're eating dinner or something?
Well, they're like they're gonna eat and then like you'll go up and do like. Thank God it wasn't long. It was like do like 20, and I was like, okay. So I show up and I see these people, and the thing is, it wasn't like an they didn't know. The lady talked to me. I watched this clip and that. Like I know what you do. I'm like, great. And then they're like, all right, so just go up now. And I was like, can someone like introduce me though? Because they don't know who I like. Can someone say welcome? And she goes, do you want a microphone? I was like, yeah, of course, 100%. And then she goes up there, and she's holding the mic, and she goes, this doesn't have batteries in it. Like she just says it across the back. And so I go, can you get them? And so she's like, can you go get batteries? And then as she says that, she goes, hey, we have a comedian here. And I'm like, oh, you should wait till you get the batteries. And like, she introduces me, and I go up there, and I'm like, hey, this is when I knew it was going to go like really poorly is when I made it. I was like, yeah, batteries always help, and everybody just looked at me like, the fuck is like, what's your problem? And I was like, oh shit. So I'm just talking to them. Someone gives me batteries. I put batteries in, close it, turn it on. I'm like, how about now? And they're like, yeah, we hear you. Like, it's still not funny, but keep going. Yeah, it was so painful, man. Like, I chewed it for like 20 minutes. I got like, it was one of those things where I had one table laughing. So I just like turned to them. I was like, this is your private show. And then the lady that booked me, she was like, yeah, last year we had like a George Bush impersonator. And I go, yeah, you should probably get him again. and she goes, yeah, I think so. Like she was like, yeah, this was really bad. Thank you.
But why would someone think that would be like a spot for comedy though?
Dude, I have no idea. I mean, when I saw them, like, the average age of the person there was probably like 50, 55, and it was pretty conservative. And I remember just like seeing faces like this, like watching me talk. I was like, shit, that guy's face looks like, like he's having a seizure. And he was like, what the fuck is this? And like, it's nothing's more painful than chewing it like that. It's so painful.
So do you stick with so you say you have like in your head, I know you have like a 20-minute set you plan on doing. Do you stick with it then?
I think like, what happens like in a bomb like that where you're like, it's different a bomb in a club than at an event like that. At that event, you're like, Jesus, I do not want it to go like this at all, especially because, they're paying you well. I think usually you speed it up. Like I'm like, and then maybe the thing you were saving for later gets like pushed up. You're like, I'm going to try this. Because you think that like, if I try this and I do it a little more, like turn it up a little, maybe it'll bail me out of how horrifically this is going. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you change speed a little bit on that. On clubs, it's different. Clubs, you can kind of like, you address it more head on. You're not getting like thousands to do the show. It's like, it's different. It's a different feel. It's, but I think it's better in those situations, any situation, to address it. Like, I am absolutely eating shit right now, than to act like that's not happening,
Yeah, it's always good to acknowledge it. That's what you got to at least let them know and not try to, comedy's different. I've done some, like, speaking gigs to people, not comedy, obviously, but, like, obviously Q&A is easy, but talk, just like, I don't know, give like a little 20-minute talk or something. I enjoy that, but if you can get like a little laugh early, it changes everything. Like in any kind of public thing. So I I officiate weddings, and I just did one like a month ago or 2 months ago. And if you can get like, the funniest thing is you learn that like the cheapest like hack jokes work with those wedding crowds.
Oh, for sure. Now, wait,
great.
do you want to do this? Is this something you've always wanted to do?
Well,
officiate?
I went online like 7 years ago and got like, became official, Pastor Aaron James Hawk, Reverend.
For a friend, like that kind of thing?
Well, this time it was at the hopes that a friend would ask me eventually. And so 5 years after I became official, I got asked to do my first wedding.
Oh, really? 5 years?
Yeah, and then I just did another one this past, like a month ago here in Columbus, and it was good and quick. But the first one I remember that I did, like I was definitely nervous. Like I prepared, man. Like I'm like, whew, okay. And everyone like just assumed, like it was all like a lot of teammates were going to be there. And they're like, oh, man, I can't wait to see it. You're going to be funny. You're going to make jokes. I'm like, this is their wedding, man. Like, I'm not a stand-up. It's not, nothing is.
Even if you were, you're not going to, like, mock their
Never.
wedding. Right, yeah.
Yeah, like nothing, and nothing is universally funny to their 90-year-old grandma sitting in the front row as well as my 25-year-old idiot buddies in the back.
Yeah.
So, like, I remember I just said my first one, it was outdoors and it was cold. And he's Nate, one of my great friends, a trainer in Green Bay, and we did it outside in St. Louis or Kansas City, and I was like, oh yeah, Nate couldn't even just to say it. I was like, Nate can't seem to get enough of that cold weather, huh, or something. And they like went crazy, and everyone was like, oh god, I'm like, all right, like you could probably see me like on like,
it.
Oh,
yeah,
man, this is okay, I'm good. And I just went right into my whole program, and it was good.
Yeah. See, and I still like it's funny like even when people are coming to see you now, like if you open a show. And it's not a joke. It's like something off the cuff, and you feel like it doesn't click. Is when a little part of you goes like, oh, like, huh, like they weren't like they didn't get that, or that wasn't funny to them. It catches your attention. But in the same way, like if you say a little thing, it's like almost like an off the cuff comment, and it gets a laugh. You go like, already you feel this is going to go most likely to this trajectory. It's going to go well. Like you feel it in those first 5 seconds.
Oh,
5 seconds.
I can't imagine for you guys that are going to all these different clubs. And I mean, you got your following now that they come to see you specifically, but still it's got to feel good to hit something early and to like.
Oh, definitely, man. That first thing you crack at, if it gets a big laugh, it sets the tone for the whole show. And sometimes you do a joke that you're kind of like that whole thing of like, it's a joke that's kind of masked as like your conversation piece, so it's kind of disguised. And when that kind of is like, when that falls totally flat, the party is like, all right, seriously, like you realize you have to make some type of adjustment,
You do it on the fly. How do you, I didn't get to it earlier. How do you come back from like a bad or a crazy heckler when you're on like, cause you guys have a format, like a set that you want to hit, and you have this closer you got to build up to, and you also have this time restraints because you probably you might have a second show, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you do you cut complete bits out if you have to spend a lot of time killing a heckler?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, like if somebody sometimes you'll be, you're building the momentum in a bit, and it's like growing, and then like it's one thing for like a heckle, and there's nothing to like somebody who's like a problem. Like they're just like talking and like, I've had times where I'm like, well, like not doing the rest of that, because we have to fucking talk to you, and then they'll be like, sometimes, oh, why are we doing that? No, we got to talk to this asshole for a second. So you kind of, you have to abandon what you're doing sometimes. And then other times it's more like somebody says something, you say something back, you put out that fire. And I'll be like, genuinely say to the crowd, like, where was I? And they'll be like, you just said this. And you're like, yes. And you pick up right where which is like, it's kind of more fun. Like the other way is more like, almost like you're punishing, everybody. Cause you're like, no. We're all going to do 20 push-ups because of Sam, like that kind of thing where you're like, he screwed this up. So thank him for this later.
Do you like when people heckle you?
I mean, not really, dude. I mean, I know that it comes with the territory. So it's not like you're ever going to get away from it completely. I don't mind, I don't mind somebody yelling something, not that like you're wanting it to happen all the time, but I realize that's just the way it goes. Sometimes it can turn into something fun. I hate the person that thinks that that's what they're supposed to do, or like they're like, I'm helping you. And you're like, you're not helping.
Yeah.
You're definitely not helping. But what's worse than any heckle is like a table of people just having a conversation. I mean, countless times, like I've been like, hey, like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're talking. They look at you like, what do you mean, what are we doing? You're like, yeah, there's a show going on. Sometimes they're front row. I had a lady one time go like, we're talking about our kids. Like, we're talking about our kids right now.
Okay.
Like, do you mind? And I was
wow.
like, yeah. And it's funny, like, they make, you know, I said something, I'm sure, really super rude, like something along the lines like, nobody gives a fuck about your kids here. Yeah. So, you know, go talk.
They're in your arena, though. You 100%. There's nothing you can't say to them.
And they were like, I mean, I still remember, it was in Ohio. It was in Cleveland. And they were like, how dare you say that? I'm like, what? Like, they're so oblivious to like what is going on in the room and what they're doing. And a lot of times those tables too, they don't realize that like, they think it's like you that has a problem with it. And you're like, no. I'm the one with the microphone that has a problem with it. Everybody around you hates you. They want you to die in a house fire right now because you're fucking not shutting up. And the more they drink, you know, the louder they get. You know how it goes. It's like, God. Yeah, it's a total, it's a fucking nightmare, man.
Like, I don't know anybody. I've been to tons of stand-up, and I've been to plenty of them that I was like, oh, this guy, you know, I have such respect for what you guys do that I may not laugh a lot at all at all of them. I've had plenty of them where I'm like, oh, like you feel bad for the dude, you know, just working hard. One of the guys that was, I don't know his name, went before Stanhope. I saw Stanhope in Appleton, Wisconsin a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
And man, I just felt bad for this dude. Like he was trying so hard and he just wasn't getting any laughs. And I'm like, like you're so awkward. You're embarrassed for him. But I would never say anything. I would, I mean, honestly, I would probably commit suicide before I would yell something to a comic, like bad.
You know, because you're probably a fucking, you know, decent, rational human being. It's amazing.
Rational, I guess, is the word. Yeah.
I mean, like, or, you know, sometimes it's funny, too. Like, some people find the need either to yell during the set, which is just, you know, it's horrible, or, like, afterwards. They'll be like, they'll tell people that they sucked, or, like, you know, that guy was better, and you're like, why are you, you don't think he knows that? Like, he doesn't need to hear it. I mean, I've been on both ends of that. I'll tell you, it's almost more uncomfortable when somebody compliments you by shitting on the other person than you getting shit on. Because when you get shit on, you're like, yeah, like if somebody's like, hey, like, you're better than that guy, and you hear it, you're like, great, you like that person more. I don't need to know it. But when somebody tells you, I like you more than him,
and
you're
he's
like,
there,
dude, yeah, you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, don't do that. Like, you know, it's so, they have no sense of decency.
They have no awareness, man. People, that's like when you drive by someone who just cut off 7 people in their car, and you drive by and you're just I'm like losing my mind. Yeah. And then I drive up next to them, and I see they have absolutely no awareness of what they did. Then I lose my mind even more.
Of course. How do you do this? How do you function in this world? Yeah, it's crazy.
And you run into them all the time, I'm sure, in these stand-up
shows. Yeah. And they're at your show, and you're like, never come here. Nobody likes you here. Everybody hates you.
Talking about my kids, Tom.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Billy got a C on his math paper.
Oh yeah, and does Nancy know about it now? That's fucking great. You guys want another margarita? Let's set this up for you. They're the fucking worst, man. They're the absolute worst.
I love it. I think you guys are. I think the second that we walk through the door is a fair game for anything that wants to be said. There's nothing that's like out of bounds. I think for what
that's the whole fun part. Yeah, that's why you go there, man. Is that anything can be said? That's the fun part.
Well, didn't Tosh have to apologize a couple years back when something about telling the girl to get raped or something?
You know, it was like spun. I talked to a couple people that were there. He was like, you know, it wasn't the way that he didn't say like, it'd be funny. She said something about, I don't want to misquote it, but it was reported the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't what was printed. And I don't remember that he actually even,
he probably didn't. Yeah.
No, I think he was just like, well, that's what you're saying was said is not what was said.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I just thought it was ridiculous that a stand-up had to apologize publicly.
Oh, they
for a girl that, like, I think because she blogged about it. Didn't she go home and blog or something? And I'm like,
for sure.
Why does this girl have the power to make this monster comedian apologize?
We talked about it with Joe today about how, like, I think it was off the air, about like when Chappelle did a show here last year, that somebody wrote a blog about how their hero, offended them because he said this or that, and it's like, he's somebody that I admired, and now, he said this, he made this one comment. It's like, dude, you're at a stand-up show, and he said something you didn't agree with, so, like, it's over. Like, that's the way, it's stand-up. Like, he's going to say, you say inflammatory things. Like, you're going for jokes, It's like, it's just the fucking worst, man.
It's got to be good that it keeps giving you guys more material, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's why it's fun. But I'm gonna wrap this thing up, man. Really appreciate you coming on. I know you just came.
Dude.
Did you do 3 hours with Joe today?
Yeah.
God,
yeah.
Did you not get up and take a leak in all 3 hours?
I did not.
How do you do that?
Not. I mean, sometimes it's funny, I had like 2 cups of coffee and I started a water when I was there, but then I peed right after, and then I drove home, and I had a good bit of fluid come out of me after that too.
Obviously it's not that's the hard-hitting questions I give you on here.
I like it. Hey, I think I'm gonna try this year. 2 years ago I did a football podcast. Mm-hmm. Then and I didn't do it last year, and I really missed doing it, and it had a really good following. It was fun. Will you do my football podcast if I bring it back?
Yeah. What do you do?
I basically it's called Charge It to the Game. I want to talk to you about trash talk so bad, because that's like, I keep saying that my favorite thing would be to have a live mic feed into my living room during football. Like, that's one of the favorite things, is like when you watch like those NFL films and
mic'd up stuff.
Dude, the mic'd up stuff is my favorite. Yeah. Like, I would have loved to hear. I mean, there's a million things I'd love to hear, but I love the stories about like trash talk. To me, it's like, maybe because I'm a comedian and I love, people that talk shit. But when I hear the things, the little bit of people talking shit, to me, it's like, it's hilarious and endlessly entertaining.
Oh, it is. I mean, yeah, trust me.
Are you talking? Do you talk on the field?
No, I don't say anything because I realize how stupid I am. Like, shut up, you're stupid. Like, I have nothing. So I figured out real early on, like, if someone will say something to me, what are you little bitch? I'm like, no. And just like shake my head and be like, I'm going to kill this guy. And then I try to find a way the next play just to, punch him in the ribs 7 times in the bottom of a pile. I can't say anything. I wish. I can't. I'm terrible, man.
How awful are piles? I mean, is it pretty like
it? Yeah, like, how people. I'm sure you've heard everyone like, and there's like a loose ball in their pile, everyone just do piles
making
on
fingers and yeah.
It definitely happens. It sucks because I've had a few where over the years where I've somehow can't, like, you say you come up with the ball and you're under there, you can't see anything, and there's all kind of stuff. And to try to hold on to the ball is some of my greatest feats ever, that no one will ever know how hard you have to fight to hold on to that thing. Like, if you, like, reach out with one arm, like, pull the ball in, seriously, then, like, everyone else sees that as they pile on, and it's death under there, man. It sucks.
It really is.
The refs can't get to you quick enough to see that you have the ball.
Who's an amazing trash talker that either you play with or against?
Oh, goodness. That's a great one, man. I played against Chad Johnson. He was pretty good.
Oh, my God.
Chad was good. Chad would always mess with the DBs and, like, get in their head quick, because out there, wideouts and DBs are one-on-one all the time. Yeah. And they would just make them – he would play mind games with those dudes. And if they were a young kid, it was tough. But I don't know. I forget who said this. A quarterback in college said it. I've said this publicly, I think, before to somebody on here. The worst I've ever seen, like, a guy get his feelings hurt. Normally guys just, yell and cuss back and forth. They sound like you.
Don't touch me, white boy!
Yeah, they sound like you, Tom or Black or whatever. In your Netflix special. When you're doing, who was it? Who pulled up and you yelled?
Big Daddy Kane?
Yeah.
What's up, Kane? You've heard a lot of white boy shit. Don't lie, right? You have.
Yeah, of course.
For sure. Yeah.
But, like, your Big Daddy Kane, that's on the special, right?
Completely normal, yeah.
Oh, my God, I was dying watching.
Yeah.
And then when you just recently went on the Fighter and the Kid, and you and Brendan had a whole 20-minute segment of that.
Yes, we did. He told me his football, his Miami, playing against Miami. Don't touch me, white boy. And I was like, that's the best thing I'd never heard. Is don't touch me in football. Like for someone to be like, stop touching me, man. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like, oh, okay. I'm not going to touch you. Okay. My bad. Sorry, bro.
What are we doing out here? Yeah, that's why I can't. I learned from. I mean, I've been playing football since the second grade, and some guys just have the gift, and they're able to like talk and say stuff. And like I said, I'm so bad that you just don't.
What's
talk.
the quarterback thing? You said?
Oh yeah. So in college, I don't know if it's funny or not, but it was. I watched like a guy, one of my own teammates. I was like, oh, he's just sad. So something happened. we had a backup, and I've used this since then. Actually, we had a backup DB come in the game. Quarterback was scrambling, ran around, and like I don't know, got run out of bounds or something, got tackled, and I was like in on a tackle with one of our safeties, and this other safety comes up and he starts talking. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, just yelling. Sounds like you basically in your stand-up. That's what I thought.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
He's yelling at the starting quarterback, who was like a 3-year starter, like great quarterback, and the quarterback stood up looks like, and he looks over at our safety. I still remember his name's Nate Sally. He's a Florida kid, and he looks at Nate on our team. And he goes, Nate. He goes, who's this dude? He's not even on the depth chart. And the kid that the guy who. It was the fact that he didn't know who he was, or he acted like he didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
Like it broke his brain. He couldn't handle it. I don't know if he ever came back from it. He was like, you talk about a guy that had nothing to say back. Normally everyone always says something back.
Yeah.
He was just like it was like it shut his life down.
Yeah, that's kind of those are really fun. That's kind of like roasting shit. Like you're not on the depth chart. Like I think it was Arian Foster on one of those mic'd ups that like someone tackled. My favorite is when people like talk shit after like the guy gets up after like a 2-yard run. He's like, "What's up?" And you're like, "That's 2 yards, dude." Like it's
that's the only time I'll ever have anything to say to somebody is if they do that.
Yeah, I didn't ever talk when I was playing in high school. The only thing I ever said to a guy one time who talked a lot of shit, I go, "Look at the scoreboard, man." I said that one time we were up like 4 or 5 touchdowns. I was like, "Look at the scoreboard, dude." And he's just like, oh, yeah. But, like, that was the only thing I said. But I think it was Foster, like, some guy hit him and was like, yeah, what's up now? And he was like, what's your name? Turn around. Yeah. I don't know your name, man.
Exactly.
Like,
I've seen
I don't know who
clip.
you are. Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's I'm telling you, man, it cuts them to the core. You can say whatever you want about any family member or anything, but if you act like you don't know who the guy is, I've done that since, and, like, you always try to be nice to people, like, off the field. I've done things where I'll act like someone will ask me about somebody or whatever, and I'm like, who's that? I don't know who that is. What do you mean? And it's someone that you obviously should know. And it came about, actually, I really offended a kid when I was in college, and I did without knowing it. We were playing Texas, actually. It was going into our senior year, and I guess some kid they had on their team, I don't know his name. Sorry, buddy, whoever you are. And I had a media guy come to me and said, oh, so what do you think about whatever this kid's name, what do you think about Bill Johnson saying that he's going to be the best linebacker on the field come September 10th, whatever the game was? And this was going into my senior year, and we had, like, Bobby Carpenter, Anthony Schlegel, like, some really good linebackers on our team, too. No, he didn't say best linebacker. He said best player on the field. And I was like, I didn't know who the guy was. And so I didn't realize I was slighting the dude. I was like, oh, is he? I was like, I don't know. Troy Smith's a good quarterback, man. I don't know if you can say the best player on the field. I don't know who. They're like, no, Bill Johnson. I was like, I don't. What does he play? I'm sorry, and I didn't know who he. Yeah, I didn't know who he was. I really didn't. And then come to find out, of course, the game happens, and this dude has a vendetta against me, and thinks he's like I slighted him or I offended his family. I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy. It's college. I'm not. I don't study the other team and see who they're. I don't play offense. So I don't care who their linebackers are.
They have your quote up and all over the locker room.
They punch it on the way out.
Hawk said that we're a bunch of bitches and he doesn't know anybody on this team. You're like, wow, all right, we're gonna get fired up here, AJ.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Well, that's another misconception I would say about football when people are like, oh, don't give them any bulletin board material.
Nothing.
No, who cares? The second the game starts, none of that matters.
None of that matters.
A lot of times they'll talk about it and say, whatever, oh, you don't want to give Bill Belichick any more encouragement. Do you think Bill Belichick needs, something like that? It doesn't matter.
You think his heart rate beats above 40 beats a minute? Do you think?
He doesn't. He's not worried with any of us minions. He's up here, man. His brain works in a different way than all of ours.
Yeah. You're like, oh. Somebody said something this week. Anyways, so.
Yeah, third and 6. What are we going to, here's our, that's
I love that. Like, I thought we played well. Like, could you elaborate? He's like, drove down, scored. It's good. Well, that was a fun press conference, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's like, have you seen Greg Popovich do his press conferences? Spurs coach?
Yeah, he's great.
Similar deal, man. Like, he is amazing. Like,
but see, he's in on it. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So it's a little, like, I think Bill is genuine to himself. Popovich, they're like, you guys are falling behind, not getting a lot of rebounds. What do you think you need to do next quarter? And he'll be like, more rebounds?
Yeah.
And they're like, all right. Like, he knows what he's saying. Belichick, I feel like, is just like, look, man, I'm doing this. I'm contractually obligated to be here, and I'm going to answer this like this. And, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, you're right, man. It's true. And almost people, I don't know, it makes him even more of like a legend, I think, and how he responds.
Absolutely.
Because most guys most people are all, especially in any sports, coaches or players, they just want attention. They want to find a way to get the camera on them and all that garbage. Same with him. You ever watch guys fight? I'll give you a little pointer. You probably know. If you watch guys, like say a couple guys go in to sack the quarterback, and you watch them both get up, and the first guy to celebrate, there's always like they'll jump up and start dancing and do their little victory move or whatever that guys have. They want to get credit for the sack. They want because they split sacks half and half. Yeah, so no, and then they'll argue on the field. No, I got full. No way, man, I'm getting half at least. And they argue back and forth. I'm like, all right, guys, hey, you're coming to the line. Let's just get back. Let's get lined up again. We'll figure that out later.
And you're keeping them in check, like, guys, there's a play right now.
Oh yeah, like it happens all the time, man. That's the first thing they do. No, I got a full one there. No, you're not. I got a full, and they're trying to see who's gonna get a full sack, who's getting half a sack, and it's a known thing that's blew my mind my first couple years in the league. I was like, who cares who gets the sack? We're all trying to win the game, and I still feel the similar way. But then the league. Then they'll send the video in to the league, and the league will make the decision on who gets the sack and who gets half and all this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's what they'll argue about, and guys get mad at each other if you send one in. Like, say I got a sack. It's happened to me before. Like, say I get a sack and a guy thinks he got a half, he'll send it in. Like, if I was credited with a full sack, then that's just how it goes. But the league, if this kid thinks he got half, he can send it in. And then hopefully get half, and the league can change it and give me half and this guy half.
So teammates are contesting their own teammate
100% every single game.
And how do you send it in? You just I
guess you have your agent send. I've never sent. I'm going on my 10th year. I've never sent something in. You have your agent do it, and I'm like, bro, who cares? We'll be all right. Don't worry. And they're like, well, and everyone they do have a point, I guess, when they say, well, if I'm an edge rusher, if I'm a DN, I get paid. I can only get a contract if I can get double-digit sacks. So I need every sack I can get.
Incentive stuff, right?
It's hard to blame them, but I'm like, it's just set up wrong then. It's set up to make guys selfish, and I've said that. I hate it. I hate that part about the NFL.
That sucks. Yeah. That's really cool. I had no idea you could do that.
Yeah, so I've had guys steal a half a sack from me, and other teammates be like, man, what do you got to send it back in, and then you can double send it in, like an appeal. And be like, no, I should get credit for a full. And I'm like, nah, you can have it, buddy, if you want to go through that much effort. And it'd be like, say the game's Sunday, he might send it in on Monday night or Tuesday as agent. You might not hear it till Saturday, who got the full or whatever. And then the dude will come into the meeting on Saturday morning all happy.
Because got that sack, man. Yeah. I'm getting a new contract.
So, especially if he's on a contract year, you know how.
See, we're doing this is charges to the game, man. We're definitely doing this.
That's okay, good. Yeah, I can give you all kind of little tips. I've been around for a while, man. So
yeah, you got stories, bro.
Yeah,
this is cool.
Yeah, man. Well, where can people find you?
TomSegura.com, Segura, at Tom Segura on Twitter. And if you want to check out my podcast with Christina Pazsitzky, it's called Your Mom's House. You can go to yourmomshousepodcast.com.
It's really good. Podcast always. You guys been up on the charts since the jump, man. You guys are killing it.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while. Yeah, we actually just shot a pilot based on the podcast, so that's pretty cool. So we'll see what happens with that, with this exciting stuff for us, for sure.
Man, awesome. Yeah, and you got a baby on the way, old
man.
Tommy Boy
we both
Jr.
Do.
Yeah, no, it's not Tom Jr., but
but you're not going to name yours Tom Jr.?
Yeah, it's Tom Segura Hawk. I didn't tell you that before we recorded.
That's a badass name.
That's a cool middle name. What's the middle name? Segura. Oh yeah, after the great comedian. Yep.
Oh yeah, you're like, yeah, man.
Just like that Richard Pryor. You might. Yeah, Richard Pryor drawing behind. Is that a drawing?
For here?
Yeah.
This
Not
is,
Pryor, my bad. I mean George Carlin.
Yeah, that's
Come
Carlin.
on.
Yeah,
That's
I was
a
like,
little different.
Jesus, white boy, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
Hey, hands. What do you say? Hands off. Don't touch me.
Don't touch me, white boy. Yeah.
I would have no response to that. I'm gonna touch you. I'll touch you, bud.
I know that I would be in shell shocked. Like, what is going on? I would go back.
Where am I?
I would go back to the huddle, be like, "Yo, this dude said don't touch him."
Stay away from 93, whoever it is.
And he said, "Because I'm white, not to touch." I don't know what to do. I would ask my black teammates, like, "Is it cool to not? Am I allowed to touch him? Is it different here? Do you give me permission to touch him?"
It's like a Key and Peele sketch, man.
Yeah, that's so hilarious.
Do that. All right, man. Thanks. I kept you long. You've had a big podcast day, buddy.
It's a big podcast day. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, Tom, appreciate it, man. We'll have you back on here eventually. Maybe after your baby's born, we could talk. We can hear some of your baby stories, man. First time dad, changing diapers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't wait for that stuff. But I want to have you on before then. We're gonna talk football sometime.
Whatever you want, man. Let's
do it.
Easy. It's easy for me.
It's a lot of fun, dude. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Take care, buddy.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.